Hello everyone. Today's topic is respiratory system. So what is respiratory system? It is a system which is a network of organs and tissues that help you breathe. So it consists of all the organs which are involved in respiration plus the tissues also. The definition of respiration is that it is the process of releasing energy by the breakdown of glucose. So glucose is oxidized and it releases energy. That is known as what? Respiration. Respiration also includes your airways, lungs, blood vessels. The muscles that power your lungs are also the part of the respiratory system. Now, the respiration is of two types of respiration. One is your external respiration and other is your internal respiration. External respiration is also called breathing. It means that it is simply exchange of gases. Means what we take in oxygen and we give out carbon dioxide. So exchange of gases by the process of diffusion, that is known as breathing. So it's a physical process that depends on the principle of diffusion. No energy is released in the process. Breathing means safe oxygen we are taking in and we are giving out carbon dioxide. And second is internal respiration. In internal respiration, it is also known as cellular respiration. It involves both oxidative and non-oxidative enzymes reaction. It means that in this the glucose will be oxidized to give you energy. Internal respiration is of two types. One is your aerobic respiration and another is your anaerobic respiration. What is aerobic respiration now? Aerobic respiration is that respiration which takes place in the presence of oxygen. And anaerobic respiration is that respiration which takes place in absence of oxygen, and it occurs mostly in muscles and yeast cells. Now, next is your cellular respiration. One by one we will study with all these. Cellular respiration is the process that takes place inside the cell where energy is released by the breakdown of glucose molecules. In this, what is happening in this is the oxygen reacts with glucose to give you carbon dioxide, water and energy, and this is taking place inside the cell. That is, it is taking place in mitochondria, and mitochondria produces your energy. This is cellular respiration is further divided into two: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. I told you earlier also that in aerobic respiration takes place in presence of oxygen, and in anaerobic respiration oxygen is absent. In this, simply gases are exchanged, and in this gases are not exchanged. In aerobic respiration it is in cytoplasm and the mitochondria, and anaerobic respiration can be found only in cytoplasm. In this, glucose breakdown to give you carbon dioxide, water and energy. In this, glucose breakdown to give you ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide and energy. Now, aerobic respiration takes place in all the higher organisms and mammals, while anaerobic respiration takes place, I told you that it is in the bacteria and in your muscles when there is a lack of oxygen in this. Okay, so now first is aerobic respiration. Aerobic means with air. So this respiration takes place in presence of oxygen and it produces energy. It is common in most plants and animals, including humans, birds and other mammals. While breathing, we inhale air that contains oxygen and we exhale air rich in carbon dioxide. As we breathe in, the oxygen-rich air is transported to all parts of the body and ultimately to each cell. Inside the cell, the food which contains glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water with the help of oxygen. Means the equation for this is glucose. When it reacts with oxygen, it gives you carbon dioxide, water and energy. So this respiration taking place in presence of oxygen, and what are the end products of this reaction? Carbon dioxide, water and energy. How many molecules of ATP are produced? It's 38 molecules of ATP are produced in this reaction, and it takes place inside the cells of animals and plants. Basically, it is taking place in it is two-step reaction. First, glucose is broken down into pyruvate, and then the pyruvate is then oxidized to give you carbon dioxide, water and energy. The first reaction, when glucose reacts with glucose 6 carbon compound, is converted into pyruvate and it takes place in cytoplasm. And the other reaction in which pyruvate is oxidized to give you carbon dioxide, water and energy, that takes place in mitochondria. So in this aerobic respiration is taking place in cytoplasm as well as in mitochondria, and it takes place in presence of oxygen. It gives you energy, that is 38 molecules of ATP. Okay, so now next is your anaerobic respiration. What is anaerobic respiration? That is, it takes place in absence of oxygen. Sometimes there is not enough oxygen around for some organisms to respire, but they still need energy to survive. Due to lack of oxygen, they carry out respiration in the absence of oxygen. Means कि किसी टाइम क्या होगा कि वहाँ पे उनको ऑक्सीजन नहीं मिल रही है, so they respire in absence of oxygen, and when they respire in absence of oxygen, instead of producing only carbon dioxide, water and energy, they produce another product that is known as alcohol. So the main thing is that during anaerobic respiration, the end product is alcohol, in yeast and in bacteria. The muscles also, anaerobic respiration takes place in muscles also. You know that when we do physical exercises, we have that muscle cramps. So muscle cramps are due to the deposition of the lactic acid. So what is happening is that in that case the muscles में हमारी anaerobic respiration होता है, means there is lack of oxygen in the muscles, and that's why the glucose is converted into lactic acid and energy. So what happens that in anaerobic respiration, it is used by multicellular organism during heavy or intensive exercise such as running, sprinting, cycling, weightlifting. Our body demands high energy, so the supply of oxygen is limited. तो muscle cells जो है हमारे aerobic respiration की जगह they will do anaerobic respiration. Okay, and glucose will produce lactic acid and energy. So end product of this is respiration is lactic acid. So cramps occur when muscle cells respire anaerobically. Partial breakdown of glucose due to lack of oxygen, it produces lactic acid, and in lactic acid हमारे muscles में accumulate हो जाता है, जिसकी वजह से हमें muscle cramps होते हैं. तभी muscle cramp को ठीक करने के लिए what is the solution? That is a hot shower after heavy sports relieve the cramps. To just take a hot shower, it will improve the blood circulation and it will enhance the supply of oxygen to the cells. So what we conclude from this is कि during aerobic respiration जब ये ऑक्सीजन मिल रही है पूरे सेल्स को, ग्लूकोज ऑक्सीजन से रिएक्ट कर रहा है and it will give you carbon dioxide, water and energy. The end products are carbon dioxide, water and energy. एनारोबिक रेस्पिरेशन में हमने पढ़ा है कि दो टाइप का होता है ये, एक होता है ईस्ट में और दूसरा होता है मसल्स में. ईस्ट में द एंड प्रोडक्ट इज अल्कोहल, carbon dioxide and energy, and in muscles the end product is lactic acid and energy. And during anaerobic respiration a less amount of energy is released as compared to aerobic respiration. In general, in yeast it was giving you 2 molecules of ATP. So aerobic respiration, it occurs with the mitochondria, and anaerobic respiration occurs within the cytoplasm of the cell. So this was your types of respiration. Now what is the function of respiratory system? Simple. The respiratory system function, first function is breathing. That it helps you to breathe in and breathe out. Second is it allow you to talk and to smell. Third, it warms air to match your body temperature and moisturizes it to the humidity level your body needs. Third, delivers oxygen to the cells in your body. Fourth, remove waste gases including carbon dioxide from the body. Now this is your diagram of your respiratory system. So the tube which is connected, that is known as windpipe or trachea. Then this trachea splits into bronchus, then this is the bronchus, and then bronchus split into bronchioles, and after bronchioles then there is your alveoli. So these are your ribs, and this part is showing bronchus, bronchioles, and diaphragm. Diaphragm is the muscle which control the mechanism of breathing. Now in this diagram there is first nasal cavity from where the air, the oxygen enters. Then there is the pharynx. Pharynx is that portion which is behind your oral cavity also and behind the nasal. So it's a common passage for both air and food to pass. Then there is the larynx. Larynx is also known as the voice box. Then trachea. Then there is bronchus, then bronchi, then bronchioles, and finally it is alveoli. Now we'll study parts of respiratory system. The first part is mouth and nose. So we breathe in, we take in oxygen, air through our nose and sometimes through our mouth also. Then the air reaches the pharynx, that is the throat, the tube that delivers air from your mouth and nose to the windpipe. Now pharynx is divided into three parts. One is your nasopharynx, other is your oropharynx and laryngopharynx. So this is your diagram. So nasopharynx is behind the nasal cavity, oropharynx is behind the oral cavity, and then there is a laryngopharynx behind, just above the larynx. The next we are going to study is lungs. So lungs, these are the main organ of respiration. These are the two organs that takes in oxygen from the air and pass it into your blood. Now these lungs are located in the chest on either side of the heart, and the lungs are protected by the rib cage. These are your conical in shape with a narrow rounded apex at the top. From the top they are a rounded apex at the top, and the broad there is a base. And then they are behind the below these lungs there is a muscle called diaphragm. The lungs stretch from the close to the backbone in the rib cage to the front of the chest downward, and from the lower part of trachea to the diaphragm. Now the membrane which is surrounding the lungs, that is called pleural membrane. There are two serous membrane, the outer parietal pleural lines, which is the inner wall of rib cage, and the inner visceral pleura, which is directly lines the surface of the lungs. Okay, in this diagram, look, this is a pleural cavity in which the fluid is filled, that is called pleural fluid, which protects the lungs from shocks and injuries. Okay, then it is divided into two. The inner layer is called, this is your visceral pleura, and this is your parietal pleura. So this is outer one is parietal, and then this is your visceral pleura. So this parietal membrane is divided into two, parietal pleura and visceral pleura. Okay, so what is the main thing is that the lungs are covered by a membrane which is called a serous membrane or pulmonary pleura. The serous membrane is divided into two, parietal pleura and the visceral pleura, and between these pleura there is a fluid there is a cavity which is called pleural cavity, and this pleural cavity contains the fluid which is a lubricating pleural fluid. दो membrane है, parietal और visceral pleura, बीच में cavity है जिसमें एक liquid है, pleural fluid है. Okay, now from this it is visible that lungs जो है हमारा, ये वाला lung that is of 2 lobes, and this lung is of 3 lobes, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next is your diaphragm, a muscle that helps your lungs to pull in air and pushes it out. The ribs, the bones that surround and protect your lungs. तो muscles है जो take part in respiration, that is your diaphragm, और जो ribs हैं, these are the bones which protects your lungs and heart. What are alveoli now? the tiny air sacs in the lungs where exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. One second. Okay, now we have studied what mouth, then pharynx. I told you the pharynx is divided into three parts. Then the trachea is the passage which is connecting your throat and lungs. And then in lungs we have first is this part is bronchioles, and bronchioles are further divided. These balloon like structures, this is your alveoli, and these are surrounded by ब्लड कैपिलरीज. मेन एक्सचेंज ऑफ गैसेस जो होता है जहाँ पे हमारे ऑक्सीजन हमारा ब्लड में जाएगी और ब्लड से कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड यहाँ पे आएगा, दैट इज़ इन दिस पोर्शन ओनली, एल्वियोलाई ओनली. तो मेन एक्सचेंज ऑफ गैसेस जो है, जो हमारा मेन यूनिट है वो है एल्वियोलाई. Bronchioles are the small branches of bronchial tubes that leads to the alveoli. ये this is trachea. फिर यहाँ पे bronchus हो गए, ये branches हो गए, this is bronchioles. ओके, पहले क्या है, ट्रैकिया है, फिर है प्राइमरी ब्रोंका है. प्राइमरी ब्रोंका है स्प्लिट इनटू सेकेंडरी ब्रोंका है, सेकेंडरी से टर्शरी, टर्शरी से एंड में ब्रोंक्यूल्स, एंड ब्रोंक्यूल्स से फाइनली टर्मिनल ब्रोंक्यूल्स. और ये टर्मिनल ब्रोंक्यूल्स रीच करते हैं एल्वियोलाई में. Okay, so after this then there is an epiglottis. What is epiglottis? There are two pipes, one is your food pipe and your other is your windpipe. So this tissue flap at the entrance of the trachea closes when you swallow to keep the food and liquid out of your air intake. मतलब कि ये इस पे ये जो फ्लैप लाइक स्ट्रक्चर होता है जो ये विंड पाइप को बंद कर देता है. व्हेन यू सॉलो फूड तो खाना इस पाइप में ना चला जाए, इट closes. This tissue flap at the entrance of the trachea, it closes when you swallow to keep food and liquid out of your airway. Then this is important voice bag, which is also known as Adam's apple, and it is an organ that allow you to talk and make sound when air moves in and out. Okay, so this is your epiglottis, and this after epiglottis there are three parts. One is your supraglottis, other is your glottis, and last one is your subglottis. What is supraglottis? It is area above the vocal cord. Glottis, which is the area which contains the vocal cord, and subglottis is the area below the vocal cord. ये हमारा एडम्स एप्पल लैरिंक्स यहाँ पे ग्लॉटिस में. above it is supra, below it is subglottis, and then is your esophagus, that is your food pipe also. So this is your nasal cavity, then the mouth cavity, oral cavity. Epiglottis ये हो गया हमारा flap like structure which closes the this windpipe.